Okay, Chapter 7, Audit Evidence. So there are 7 objectives. Contrast audit evidence with evidence used by other professions. There's identify the 4 audit evidence decisions that are needed to create an audit program. Specify the characteristics that determine the persuasiveness of evidence. Identify and apply the 8 types of evidence used in auditing. Understand the purpose of audit documentation, prepare organized audit documentation, and the last part, describe how technology affects audit, evidence, and audit documentation. So, Objective 7.1 talks about the nature of evidence. Audit evidence contrasted with legal and scientific evidence. There's Table 7-1 on page 174, talks about the basis of comparison, the characteristics of evidence for a scientific experiment, legal case, and audit of financial statements. Page 175, there are audit procedures, the sample size, items to select, and timing of the audit. 7.3 talks about persuasiveness of evidence. The appropriateness of evidence is a measure of the quality of evidence, meaning its relevance and reliability in meeting audit objectives for classes of transactions. Reliability and therefore appropriateness depends on the following 6 characteristics of reliable evidence. There's independence of provider, effectiveness of client's internal controls, auditor's direct knowledge, qualifications of individuals providing the information, degree of objectivity, and timeliness. 7.4 talks about types of audit evidence. There are 8 types. There's physical examination, confirmation, inspection, and analytical procedures, inquiries of the client, recalculation, reperformance, and observation. Throughout the chapter, there talks about the appropriateness of types of evidence. There's Table 7.4 with the physical exam, confirmation, inspection, analytical procedures, inquiries, recalculation, performance, and observation. It talks about the independence of providers, effectiveness of clients' internal controls, the knowledge of the auditor, qualifications of the provider, and objectivity of the evidence. Table 7.6 on page 187 talks about terms and audit procedures and types of evidence. There's a table talks about examine, scan, read, compute, recompute, foot, trace, compare, count, observe, inquire, and vouch. Read that, page 187. Objective 7.5 is audit documentation. The purposes of audit documentation. There's the basis for planning the audit, a record of the evidence accumulated and the results of the tests, data for determining the proper types of audit, and a basis for review by supervisors and partners. There's page 191, there's current files, include all documentation applicable to the year under the audit. There's the audit program, general information, working trial balance, lead schedule, adjusting and reclassification entries, and supporting schedules. It has a little bit about computer programming with the audit, so you'll see that in figure 7.3 and 7.4. And the preparation of audit documentation. Each audit file should be properly identified. Audit documentation should be indexed and cross-referenced. Completed audit documentation must clearly indicate the audit work performed. Audit documentation should include sufficient information to fulfill objectives, and the conclusions that were reached about the segment of the audit under consideration should be plainly stated. And the last objective, effective technology and audit, effective evidence and audit documentation. Audit evidence is often available only in electronic form, and auditors must evaluate how this affects their ability to gather sufficient, appropriate evidence. So there you go, Chapter 7 in 4 3/4 minutes.